Brian and I have been checking out, thinking about, and working on topics for today. So far, we've only got about 30.
It's been a very slow week.
It's a slow, it's a slow week. So, Brian, I thought, we would do this around the world thing again, not necessarily factory by factory, maybe subject by subject, and see what you know and what you don't know. This will be like a quiz.
Oh boy.
All right, so let me start with zero down payment. AJ thinks that maybe Tesla ramped up and made a bunch of Model Ys and Model 3s and we're sticking them in the yards and who knows where, building up some inventory prior to the announcement so that they get to a big end of quarter sale, blow them out like crazy. And you think?
Well, I think it would be too early to do that. They wouldn't do an end of this quarter. The refresh isn't coming in 2 weeks. So I think it'd be more like, I think we would see the ramp going into next quarter. I think they know that there are people who are on the fence, and that if you're on the fence and you can see Juniper just over the hedge, the Juniper hedge perhaps, then you would be inclined to wait. But something like zero down or 1.99 financing, and especially if you still have FSD transfer through the end of this month. So, guys, if you haven't, use Randy's referral code to get $1,000 off on top of that. It's a heck of a deal. You're going in saving money. All of those are levers, and it's nice to see Tesla pulling them because they need to. And we know that they wouldn't stock up leading up to the end of a quarter because they'd end up with too much inventory on hand. They don't want that.
So did you didn't see any evidence of any kind of a buildup in inventory or anything like that? No.
No, but I didn't look, but a buildup of inventory is hard to hide. And it's not like Tesla has large parking lots. Even with just normal logistics, their lots are always moving, turning over quickly because they're very small. We did see an event in, I want to say Toronto, in the last week where there was something like 1,000 deliveries in a single day. It was something truly insane. And it may have been just high hundreds, but I want to say it was 1,000. And the delivery center looked like there was an event going on and everyone was in line to do it. It looked like the big days of the early Model 3 ramp with the end of quarter pushes. So it was pretty exciting to see. And then let's not forget, Cybertruck deliveries in Mexico began this week.
Right,
Now,
right.
now people have already gotten them, but they had to go to the US, buy it, do all that, bring it back. This is direct sales into China
I
or
did,
into Mexico. It's
I
very
did,
exciting.
I did see a couple of Canadians going, "Hey, Mexico's getting theirs before Canada. What's with that?"
Yeah, I I mean, I don't have an answer, but my gut says it's a little easier to get the paperwork done in a place like Mexico.
Maybe.
I feel like Mexico is the kind of country that is more likely to just follow the rules of the country of origin rather than create the bureaucracy to set up their own rules.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. Well, as you mentioned Cybertruck, some are saying that we might be at 1,200 a week or 14.
Mhm.
What do you think? Troy says way less, but what do you think? What's your number for Cybertruck?
Troy's saying way less. Well, coming into whichever quarter it was he had me blocked, he was saying that for the following quarter, he only expected, and I don't remember the number now, but a number that we had already hit the previous quarter. And I was like, wow, this is bad prognostication. I don't know where he gets his numbers. I suspect it's a magical hat, but one that is on the fritz. So we have seen individual days where there's 1,000 on the lot. Production is north of 1,000 a week. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
come on.
But how much north you're not prepared to
Uh,
postulate.
no, I don't have it in front of me, and I don't know if you know this, but my co-host on this show does a terrible job of prepping me
Oh,
for
I
the
know, I know. If only,
No, but
only.
it's north of it, and
Okay.
we've seen that is that 4680 production continues to ramp, and there's a very good possibility that with Panasonic's line coming on in Japan, those 4680s could be shipped over to the US for use in Cybertrucks that are sold outside the US, so that US ones at the correct time would get the credit, if assuming that we're going to get to 80,000 soon. I did have a chance to talk to a service center manager yesterday who isn't who was sharing his opinion, not his company fact. His opinion is that we're not going to see 80,000 anytime soon, because he believes that even dropping the price a bit, even ending foundation but keeping the price high, is going to continue strong demand indefinitely.
Oh,
Because we know that if you drop it all the way to 80, the floodgates are open and you will not be able to make enough for a long time. So why not go down a little slower? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe,
interesting. I hadn't
yeah,
thought
maybe
of
have a
that.
non-foundation bundle that includes something different. Maybe, maybe it's the ground floor edition,
Which,
just above the foundation.
right. Well, that's breaking news. That's an interesting one. That might
It's a
even,
theory. It's not, again,
I
not a
understand,
Tesla
not a
fact.
fact.
It's his
No,
perception.
I understand. That's a good one. I like it. Well, you mentioned 4680. I spent a lot of time over the weekend talking about 4680 and how nobody, including the stock market today, is taking into consideration that we might be looking at $1 billion a month in IRA credits by next, $1 billion a quarter rather, in IRA credits by next year. But okay, so 4680, the way I'm understanding it is that maybe one or two of the lines in Austin are now making this 50 million units over roughly 100 days.
Mm.
All that being rough, but roughly, and that would be probably increasing, not like one day it was one thing and another day it's another thing. So it'd be like a ramp.
Right. So there's a word of caution there. The number we saw in June was just for Texas. The number we saw this weekend was for Texas plus Cato Road. We don't know how much Cato Road has made. They have not shared the split. So the ramp may not be quite as aggressive as it appears on a graph, because we're trying to combine and separate and understand two different numbers used interchangeably. I believe there's two lines running. I believe they're getting up to 8 at peak.
Right.
It would be my hope that they would have lines 3 through 8 at least in configuration, well so by the end of this year. I did try to get any information I could from several different Tesla employees yesterday regarding the LFP lines, and none of them had any idea. None of them had the first inkling as to what was going on with it. And it wasn't them demurring and being coy,
Yeah.
because it
No.
took a minute to explain what I was asking. So they, unless they're very, very good liars,
Yes.
but the best liars all work in legacy auto. We know
There
that.
you go.
So I don't think that was it. I think those lines are definitely coming online. I think all they need to do is stay ahead of, is to not be the choke point in Cybertruck production, and for now at least, it appears to remain true.
Yeah, yeah. So pretty much everybody, AJ and everybody else seems to feel like they should be well ahead of Cybertruck at this point, and maybe getting well ahead of Cybertruck.
And that may be true, but we don't know what the
Don't
choke
know.
points are. We don't know if there's like two things left that are keeping it under 250,000 production. And if they solve those two and now we're at 250,000 capacity, then they would definitely be
Right,
behind on the batteries. So it's tough to say.
right, right. And then you're saying with regard to the LFPs with the new CATL lines, the ones
Hmm.
we bought from CATL, we have
Correct.
no info on those. They were, I guess people were kind of projecting that those should be up and running sometime this year. Certainly not at full production, but at some kind of production.
That is, well, I don't know anyone who said they would be fully ramped, but
No,
it was certainly hoped that they would be in trial production and ramping into Q1. CATL is the one setting up the lines. They sent their techs over to work on it, which gives you the best opportunity. These aren't experimental machines. These are secondhand machines. They should just work.
right.
So we are hopeful that that will happen quickly. Uh, and then when they do, those would go into the rear-wheel drive version of the Model 3, all of a sudden every car is more is closer to eligible for the IRA. Worth noting, there is a note from the service center guys, from the guys who are doing the test drives. The IRA mineral requirements are expected to tighten on January 1st.
Wow.
So Tesla and others may see reductions in the IRA
Oh,
in January.
okay. Wow.
So get them while they're hot is the main takeaway.
Yeah, and so we also have the Panasonic line in Kansas, Oklahoma, someplace, I forget. That's supposed to be coming on board, I thought in August, but now we're in the middle of September.
The one I'm familiar with is in Japan. The 4680 Panasonic line that I'm aware of is in Japan, and it is online. But I know that Panasonic and others are working on factories in the US. But last I heard, when polling for the next presidential election came out, most of the foreign battery manufacturers who are building in the US scaled back ambitions in anticipation of the credits being reduced. So hopefully, some kind of firm guidance is available for them to resume manufacturing, because
I think we need to check on that one, because I'm pretty sure Panasonic had two factories they were working on, and the first one was virtually done as of a couple of months ago. And I think they were saying production would be starting in August, if the election was clear. And that one I don't think was ever cut back. The second one might not be fully ramping. I don't remember.
In the comments, let us know.
Yeah, what do you know? Yeah.
Because I just did a quick search, and quick was not adequate to find an answer.
No,
So
we'll figure that one out. Yeah. Then we've got the cathode production in Austin. Any word on that? Do we know if in fact it is contributing to the 4680 at this time?
So we don't know. We don't know, because knowledge requires certainty, and we don't have that. Wisdom just requires someone to click on the subscribe button down below and follow Randy Kirk, so that you'll always have a benchmark for what isn't and is wisdom. Keep it clear. No, it appears so. That building has been fully completed for almost 2 quarters. And you can tell from the drone footage. The drone footage doesn't often cover that building very much, because there's nothing to see, except that it is done and occupied and in use, which leads to believe that the cathode is at least part of the production today. We just don't know how much.
Okay, all right. And then anything about the Corpus Christi plant? I know that was theoretically January, roughly, first quarter, supposed to see production there. Any updates on that?
No. Joe hasn't been down there lately. Last we saw it, it was coming along nicely. I think January would be too optimistic at this point. But the big thing that's happened since groundbreaking is the price of lithium has just bottomed out. So it doesn't make the kind of sense that it did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So there's less urgency. And that's the same thing we're seeing with the sodium-ion batteries. I had a good discussion with 𝐓𝐮𝐬𝐳𝐲 from the Limiting Factor about that. I said, where are we at? We saw them doing some pilot tests in vehicles in China, and then we kind of didn't hear anything. And he said, oh, what happened is lithium got cheap again. When the lithium's cheap, we don't need to push as the engineering is still underway, the R&D is still there, but the urgency is alleviated for now. So the idea is, hopefully, should lithium prices go up again, sodium will be ready to deploy at that point. But for today, it's just not as critical.
Got it. Now you touched on Juniper a minute ago, and I have to admit I was not paying as close of attention as I should have. So the Juniper, we saw camo covered Junipers, or at least what appear to be Junipers. One, I think, here in Southern California, and another one, I forget where, maybe up north, I think. And so I know your supply chain guys are not as available as you had a while back, but anything at all that would suggest they're on target for end of the year or beginning of next year?
So I am still short a Bob from Bob's Bibs and Bobs who can provide me data on the supply of Bob's Bibs and Bobs. If you are a Bob, by all means, reach out. I would love to have a parts contact once again, as powerful as the ones I've had in the past. The parts on these are going to be harder to spot because they should be in common with the Model 3. I did have a chat with a Tesla employee yesterday where I was sharing my expectations for the Y Fresh, and he's not allowed to confirm or deny anything. He may not know anything,
Yeah.
but I just read him to see if there's any poker going on. And I said, what I expect is the same improvements we saw in the 3. He's like, yeah, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? I'm like, okay. And I said, but what I don't expect is a next level thing. I've seen a lot of people saying we need, oh, they're gonna go past what they did with the 3. They're gonna do 48 volt, they're gonna do air suspension, they're gonna do steer by wire. And I said, um, and I said that would remove parts commonality, which is hugely critical on a vehicle, on a line that's basically making kind of two versions of the same car. And he said, yeah, those would surprise me. So uh within Tesla, at least at the low level, employees are not expecting a jump that big. We still appear on track for Q1, in my view.
Yep.
I'm very curious to see how the changeover works because it's not 2 factories like we had last time, it's
Right.
4.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. I think they'll go one model at a time. Performance maybe first,
Mm.
or rear wheel drive first. I
Mhm.
don't know. It Yeah, it would make sense to go one model at a time because there are people who will not buy a rear wheel drive or will not buy a performance. If I'm looking at buying today and performance is the only option I have, I'm not personally getting that.
Right.
But we have seen fantastic prolonged testing with the 3 Fresh, where we saw that it beats its EPA range at real speeds at 70 miles an hour. It beats the EPA rated
Right.
range, and that's, boy, what a bit of peace of mind. And it does so getting what, 4.7 miles, or 4.7 miles to the kilowatt. That's fantastic.
Hmm. Very good. Well, speaking of kilowatts, see, you're giving me all these great lead-ins to the next story, and you said
Uh-huh.
I didn't prep you well. I'm you're just
Call
clairvoyant.
call me 𝐑𝐚𝐬𝐴𝐿 because I got that segue.
So speaking of kilowatts, the announcement, any announcement, I'm sorry, we had an announcement the other day from the second Powerwall plant that they had reached a milestone, I believe it was 100,000 units. Do we know anything about the, like how many per month or how many per quarter of the power walls are going out?
A great question. No, I don't. No, I don't. And I don't follow the Powerwall unless the news jumps in my face because Powerwall is such a small part of the smaller part of the company
Right.
already. So it's a sliver of a sliver.
See, we're reading each other's minds again. I said, I guess this part will never really move the needle that much, though. So, it's just
Yeah.
not going to be a big deal going forward. I mean, it's important and we like it, but it's
And
not.
the margin, I'm sure, is very good,
Yeah,
but we'd need to move a lot more.
right. Well, on that same note about the packs, mega packs, any news on, are they, do we know whether they've reached full production in Lathrop, and or how is the factory doing in Shanghai, or anything new on that?
My source on the ground in Lathrop, yes, I have one, says they are at full speed. They are at 24/7. They are cranking them out at full capacity. Uh, there is no such thing as full capacity. They could always do another 2%, another 2%, and they do. So they are fully ramped, absolutely fully ramped. Uh, Shanghai is still on schedule. You saw how quickly the building was progressing. We know how easy it is to put in the equipment because the equipment is so much more simple than it would be when building a car. There, the pieces are, there's a lot of right angles involved. That makes assembly very straightforward. And that's all moving very nicely. Yeah, and the Shanghai factory is like within a couple miles of the CATL factory where we believe they're sourcing the LFP cells to build it. It's just a streamlined operation, and it looks like it's going gangbusters.
Cool, cool, cool. All right, I've only got one more. Maybe you've got a couple of things I didn't think of, but the yellow Cybertruck, Cybercab, I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
yellow
Mm-hmm.
Cybercab truck
Mm-hmm.
sighting. What did you think? What did you derive? What are you, how are you imagining?
Yes, that lovely little El Camino. It is clearly a bunch of misdirection going on there. The only question is how much and in which direction. We know it's not quite real because the wrap that they put on it is a little baggy and loosey goosey, and it looks like I put it on. So don't hire me for that job. It looks to me like that might be the compact version, and that is one of the many versions we expected. I said that the box in the back is likely misdirection, that they just put a big chunk of foam on the back, that they removed the hatchback and put on foam in its place, and then wrapped over that. So it's like, when you do some creative Christmas present wrapping
Yeah,
to obscure the fact that this big, beautiful bicycle shaped box is actually just a gift card.
yes.
But so yeah, I think there's a lot of misdirection. We don't know what's going on. But I do think that there is something under there that is part of the vehicle that we are going to see. And that no amount of wrapping will stop our speculation. How dare you? It will fuel the fire.
And this would
Uh,
be a good time to mention that anybody that happens to end up with a plus one that they don't
mm,
need, and or if they're not going to use their own ticket and the plus one,
mhm.
that there's a guy named Brian and there's another guy named Randy that are definitely looking for folks who might want to donate.
Yeah, we are. I would love to get into this event. It would be a wonderful opportunity to see a Tesla event from the inside for the first time. Uh, I know they say, oh, the influencers always get the tickets. No, the influencers are lucky enough to get the plus ones. Because if somebody has a spare ticket, they say, boy, could I hang out with Sawyer Merritt for the day? Could I hang out with, you know, Brian for the day? Not as many people have said that yet. I know there are a lot of people who would love to hang out for the day. They just don't have a ticket.
Yeah, you got to get the
But
two things to line up simultaneously.
but there will be other events going on around the event, unofficial events. There always are. People will meet up at a bar or restaurant to have a watching party, hang out with like-minded people, and those can be just as much fun. I don't know if that's true because I haven't been in. Those can be a lot of fun. I will say that. So yeah, 10:10. I will have made the drive down. I was going to fly, and I thought I'm going to need wheels when I get here.
Yeah.
I'm just going to drive. It's a long drive, but I will I will only be doing part of it because the car will do the
The
rest.
rest, yes.
Now, one site we haven't talked about in a while is Berlin.
Yeah.
And it's because Berlin is done. I mean, as done as any Tesla site gets. If you go look at some recent footage, Wolfpack is still putting out footage. Tobias Lind is still putting out footage. It's beautiful, man. They did finally get that solar canopy up near the main entrance. There's solar over the uh, public charging area where there's a restroom and a little kiosk with vending machines. There's solar on the roof of the battery manufacturing building where we know they're working to get battery lines in. We don't know what the progress is. There's some new portable, temporary sprung structures going in. There's a new parking lot, but there's also new foundations going in. Not a lot of them, just a few, but it's beautiful. And if you get a chance, check it out. We don't know. We know there's still excess capacity in Berlin. I'm still curious to find out if they're going to make some Model 3s there. They certainly could to avoid what would it be, 9% plus 8 plus 10% import duty from China. Does that 19% save enough? It very well may when you add on the cost of shipping and the time in transit.
True.
So I'm not ruling that out just yet, but I think we're asking the wrong question because until 10:10, we can't actually see over the horizon.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, we don't know as of 10/10 and or the new year what other vehicles they might want to make in Berlin.
Mhm.
We did see this morning, Brian, I don't know if you saw it or not, but that they were showing the semi truck at a German truck show,
Mhm.
along with rides. You
Mm.
could drive the semi truck. So I guess they're relatively serious about selling semis in Europe.
We know that there are different road regulations, specifically in terms of overall length. We know that some countries, specifically Germany, have worked to amend those rules. There's already different rules for electric trucks, just like in the US, they can have more weight. So we don't know if they're going to, if it's easier to fix the law or fix the truck. As a manufacturer, I think it's always easier to fix the truck because how much shorter does it need to be? Could we just take off the second rear axles, and make it shorter that way? Tough to say, but it does look like they are absolutely serious about getting the Tesla Semi on the road in Europe.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of territory, a bunch of miles all around the world. I guess we'll conclude here. Any last thoughts before we say adieu?
I don't have any thoughts. I went ahead and vacated my brain before we started so that it would be smoother and easier. And I would say, yeah, in the comments, you guys be nice. Be nice for crying out loud. And yeah, and also leave the comments. So I don't know. There's a lot
Yeah,
to unpack there.
lots of comments would be good. Yes, we would
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah. All right. Well, I might have Brian on again tomorrow if I can think of a topic.
Who knows?
Who knows? It's been great talking to you.